Alright, so this is just going to be a quick tutorial on how to use Figma. Now, Figma is it's a free software that you can use online and collaborate with, and it's very similar to XD, and it has a lot of very similar capabilities. It is a little bit intimidating to get into, as it's a very powerful program despite being free and online, but it should be a pretty good supplement for XD if you haven't gotten it on your school computers yet. So the first thing you're going to need to do when you open up Figma is to create yourself an account. Now it's going to ask for like emails, and it's going to look a little intimidating because it's going to look like you might need to pay for it, but you don't have to. There is a perfectly free version. So go ahead and make an account with your student email and just select the free version. I would walk you through this, but I've already messed with this, so I don't have an account to create anymore. So once you have that done, you can go ahead and click through all of the tutorials it's going to show you. Those would be probably a good thing to sort of look at just to get a good idea of what you're going to be getting into. But once you're ready, go ahead and click a new design file over here. Now this is going to bring us into the actual meat of the program. So I'm not going to add anybody to editors right now, but you could totally do this if you would like to. And you can just walk through with the little prompts it'll give you on that front. So let's talk about the tools. Again, this is very similar to how XD works, so we're going to kind of think of it coming from that frame. So if you haven't already watched my XD tutorial, that might be a good thing to catch up on. Up in the corner here, we've got our toolbar. We have the move tool and the scale tool. Those are pretty self-explanatory, but the most important one right out of the gate is going to be this. This is our frame tool. I'm going to go ahead and just select, say, iPhone 13, because I think that's the generation we're on. I don't really use Apple, I'm going to be honest. So now that we have this is basically like our artboard, like we would have in XD. Now all of these tools have drop-downs, and the drop-down for frame is slice, and that is how you add constraints. I'm not going to get into that, however, because it's a little bit complicated and kind of more for big, large-scale apps, which you're going to be porting into multiple devices and stuff. So if that's something you really want to look into, I would go ahead and say give it a shot, but I think it's a little bit outside of our scope for now. So I'm going to go ahead and make 2 of these frames, just so I can show you how these are going to work. So I'm just going to select the same one. You can't do the sort of thing you can do in XD, where you can just click with the frame tool again and get the same canvas. You have to go in and select it, or freeform drag one out, which you totally can do, but I think it's probably going to be a little bit better to work with your designs in your desired form. So say on desktop or on a mobile device, that'll just make it a lot easier. I've chosen iPhone, but I think we're developing for Android using Unity because that's a lot easier than developing for Apple using Unity, so just keep that in mind. Alright, now that we have things all laid out, let's kind of look at our other things. So you can see in the layers here, we have both of these artboards or frames set out. We also have an assets page, which we'll get back into once we actually get some assets on the page. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over here to our rectangle tool, and you can see that has lines, rectangles, arrows, ellipses, polygons, stars, and images. So that's basically everything you're going to want or need just on the main wireframe side of things. So I'm just going to drag out a rectangle that can be our header up top. We can select a fun color for that, but I don't know what I want to do yet, so we're not going to quite get into that. And if we want to drag an image in, we can just download one and then upload it from our downloads. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Pexels here, which is the free stock image photo website that I've talked about before, and I'm just going to find one that I like. I like these ferns. Those are pretty cute. So that should just be in our downloads folder. If we go back to our Figma draft, we can go to the rectangle tool and down to images, and that's going to bring up our whole downloads folder. So I'm going to select this little fern thing that I have, and I'm just going to click, and that's going to place it. You can also drag it out. I will show that off real fast, just so you get a good idea of how it's going to work. And when you do that, it doesn't constrain you to exactly what those are going to look like. It's sort of, here, I'll show you. So we've got this other image. If we drag it out, you will see that it's going to try to make that cropped in a really nice way. this is a big landscape photo. So let's say I put it in kind of more like this. I'm sorry, it's more a portrait size, even though it's a landscape photo, but that's neither here nor there. Let's say I don't necessarily like this cropping of it. I would rather have that road in more focus. I can go up here to this crop image right up here, click that, and that's going to give me a lot more control, and I can kind of, say, adjust it a little bit, slide it around, and let's say I like that a lot better. I'm just going to hit enter and select that. All right, so back to our actual design. So you can see here that the image is rendering over the top of the rectangle. Now we can do the same sort of thing that we've done in XD before, where we can hit like Control Shift left bracket and send it to the back, or we don't have it selected, so it didn't do that. We have to have that selected first, and then we can send it to the back. But we can also just grab it and drag it around on the layers panel on the side. And I think that's probably going to be the easiest way to do that, as the keyboard shortcut is not nearly as intuitive. So just worry about your layers. Now, if we select this image, what we should be able to do is resize it. Okay. So we can't resize it because it's huge. So that's something to remember. If you're dragging something in from pixels, it's going to be a pretty decently sized image. And if you can't see the boundaries, you probably just need to zoom out a little bit. And as you can see, what it's doing here is kind of cropping it in to fit the frame, which is a super nice feature so you don't get anything overlapped. So that's very nice. And as you'll see, as I am dragging it around, it is staying in the same aspect ratio. That is because I'm holding Shift. If you let go of Shift, it will do the same thing that it did when we first dragged that road image in and just try to crop it to look good. So I actually kind of like how that's doing it. So we're going to go with that. Now let's say I want this to be our top bar. I'm going to go over to the fill drop down over here, click on that little image thumbnail, and then hit this little eyedropper tool. And that is going to bring up something that will allow me to pick a color directly out of the image. And I like doing this just because I don't like working with pure white or pure black, and that kind of gives me a little more control. I think that's a little bit too dark of a sage green for what I'm going for, so I'm going to lighten it up a little bit, kind of keeping in the same place that it was. And then I'm going to drop the opacity a little bit so we can see that forest in the background. Cool. All right. So let's go ahead and put a title at the top of this. I'm just going to click with the text tool up there and just type text. Or let's do homepage title. Oh, wait. Fern page title. Perfect. Now over here, you will see that we have all of these normal text stuff that you get in any program. I'm going to go ahead and click the text center and select a larger font size. You'll see that did nothing because I'm just in the text tool, so we want to deselect that and just kind of select it here. Now we have the whole thing selected, so it's not just editing where our text bar is, but it's editing the whole like text object. So, excuse me on that front. And center it. That way, if we edit it, we'll stay centered. And you can see these little red lines are going to appear when you start dragging stuff around. That's because Figma has this feature where it automatically snaps stuff and shows you like where all the middle points and like side points of stuff is. So that is super nice. I love it when programs do that because having things not quite centered really bothers me. So let's say that we want a different font than this default Roboto, right? So we have this drop-down menu, but it is a little overwhelming. You see, we have about 100 fonts, billion fonts, I don't know. This is because Figma is pulling all of its font library from Google Fonts. And this is a huge database of free-to-use fonts that you can pull from the internet at any point in time, which is super nice, but when it's in a big list like that, it's really overwhelming. So I would recommend opening up Google Fonts on your own and looking through this because it has a really nice interface. And let's say we want to narrow it down a little bit. I don't want a sans serif. I don't want a serif. If you don't know what those mean, by the way, quick little moment here. See this Roboto right here? That is a sans serif because it doesn't have any of the little feet or like hats. And this one right here is a serif because it has these little flourishes on the ends. And it looks more like an old-time typewriter font. So that's fun. Monospace is just any font that each letter takes up the same amount of space in the font space. And that is often used for like programming languages and stuff because it makes it really easy to line things up. But they don't always look the best, so I'm going to just select display and handwriting and get rid of the monospace one. Cool. Let's find something that looks sort of ferny. I don't know what vibes fern have. Maybe something like... Oh, I don't want to get lost in the fonts, but these are all not quite right. That was a little bit too much. Let's narrow it down even more and get rid of these handwriting fonts because I think they're going to be a little bit hard to read. So now we just have the displays. Audio wide is always nice, but it's not the ones I want. Oh wait, I think I remember one that might work. So I'm just gonna search fonts wash. Okay, I don't see the one I'm looking for, but that's okay. We'll see if it's on this one. Okay, that's not how that's gonna work. That's okay. I'm just gonna choose one. It might not be perfect, but you can spend hours looking through fonts, and that's fine. We're just gonna go with this cherry swash, even though it's not quite what I was looking for. All right, so now we've got this little title, which is a little corny looking, I'm not gonna lie, but that's what we got. And let's just add a little box here. And I think I am going to let this one just be pure white, just so things are a lot more legible. And we're just gonna drag out a text box. I'm gonna use our good old lorem ipsum generator for this one, just so we can get a feel of what it's gonna look like. A full paragraph, that's fine. And I would like this to be legible, so I'm going to select another font that is a little bit more friendly for this paragraph style. Shrink it down a little bit. Okay, that's a lot of information, but that's okay. Again, you can change just about anything here. So let's choose a nice dark green color. And one of the nice things here is you can round off the corners of any of these things, just like you could in, say, XD. So let's say we want to have a little button here that'll send the person to something else. So I want this button to be the same color as the text, and you can see that there's document colors down here. So those are really nice. We're going to just select one of those. Go back to our selection tool. I'm not sure why it's not giving us the rounded corner option here. But we do have something up here that will do that for us in the options on this sidebar. And we're just gonna grab this little title page, hold Alt and copy it down, and drag it up to sit above the rectangle. And we're gonna make it a little bit smaller so that it works a little bit nicer. You might be able to do something similar to XD where you can make like a button style. I haven't quite found that yet though, so feel free to experiment with this program and get comfortable with it for yourself, but hopefully this will be a little bit less mystifying than it normally would be. All right, cool. So let's make a second page. I'm going to just scale this down, have it be like a hero image type thing. This probably wouldn't look great on mobile. I'm going to be honest. I'm typically used to designing just for like websites and not mobile apps. So that is probably something that I should look more into. But I will make another tutorial here on how to actually design stuff and like kind of get into designing because it can be kind of a little intimidating, let's say. So we're just going to copy. Oh, what do you want from me? Just copy this over to the other one and get rid of this and the button. And now we just have some more text. So this is just a really simple little thing. So now let's hook it up like we would anything else. So to do that, I want to add another button to this second page just so that we have something to work with. And I'm just going to have a little back button. And I found that you can't quite like use just the arrow in this case. For some reason, Figma really doesn't like to let us select that nicely. So I'm just going to make a little transparent like circle around it. If you really want to not have a circle on something like an arrow tool and use that as a button, you could probably make a invisible collider just by making this circle here completely transparent. All right, let's get a little arrow in here. Make it one of our document colors. Maybe round out the side a little bit. Oh, that just got rid of the arrow entirely, so we're not going to do that. All right, so let's just call that our design. Now, let's say we want to actually make it prototyped. Up here, where we have the design prototype inspect, we're just going to click prototype. And now we have these little nodes on the sides of everything. Now this just lets us turn that thing into a button and direct it somewhere. So you just click that node and drag it to wherever you want it, and it should snap. So now we're going to just select the circle here and take it over to the next one. Now this is super simple, and again, you have like navigate to, open overlay, swap overlay. All of these are going to be just how it transitions and how exactly it works. You can have it on tap. You can have it work for mainly desktop and have it just be like a hover overlay, or like there's even a gamepad option, which is a little bit strange, but that's all right. We're just going to go with on tap and navigate to. And now just to test that this works, we're going to go up to the top right corner here, hit the present button, and that's going to bring up our prototype. And as you can see, you have a little circle around your mouse, and you can just simulate tapping on stuff, and it'll take you to and from around your prototype. So that is Figma in a nutshell. It's a pretty powerful and completely free program, so feel free to use it. I hope this helped.